Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and before the video starts, I'd like to say it's hot, so if this is a little rushed, I am sorry, but I have to turn off my fan for audio purposes. My only source of air is a vent right next to my chair here that I will be using my hand to get a little bit of air so I don't die of heat stroke. It is 91 degrees in American terms, that is like 33 degrees give or take in Celsius. So, anyway, whatever. So Arc Soup, Cynthia, and Garchomp. Okay. Say what you want about this character in terms of fucking, banner format, reused assets. This character is strong, this character is crazy, and that outfit is awesome. That's more, the last one's more biased, but that outfit is sick. I love the EX outfit. You got the green crystal here and the green earpieces, and then the red. Oh, I love it. It's so cool. Anyway, whatever. This is about mostly like the kit and like how to use, I guess, Cynthia and Garchomp. The new one, right? So I guess let's go ahead and get into this. So, of course, Arc Suit Cynthia, she drops on tomorrow, August 28th, and leaves October 7th on the new Arc Fair Scout. Arc Suit Fair Scout, whatever. This does give you about 5-6 weeks to pull for her. Pretty good amount of time. Same amount of time, give or take, for Lance and Steven as well. That's obviously nice. She's the new Multiroll. This does have a new effect, but we will, of course, be going into that more a little bit later when we look into the rest of her kit. And she's got the Physical Striker EX roll. Very strong, of course. She's a ground type again, as expected. Theme skills are, the usual. And then looking at her stats. So, of course, Garchomp can Mega Evolve, so it will have regular stats and then Mega stats. And at level 140, without any EX investment or anything like that, she's got 390 attack, 185 in both defenses, 268 special attack, 336 speed, and 699 health. These are not bad stats, like, frankly. Like, for a striker-based character, that's not bad. And, of course, with the Mega, over 400 in the attack, over 200 defenses, special attack increases as well, and 369 speed, because they did, of course, opt to give, instead of, like, I guess, directing the buff from the Mega for one specific or two specific stats, they're buffing it for all stats besides HP, which... that's respectable, but also, frankly, you didn't have to give it the special attack. Again, it doesn't really matter that much. It's fine. And then, of course, level 150 changes that, and 6-star EX does give extra stats as well. So with level 150 6-star EX, she's got 450 attack pre-Mega, 831 health, 235 defenses, and 394 speed. These are very solid stats. That attack stat alone is already quite solid, and these defensive stats are good for a character that is based around dealing damage, being the Striker EX roll. If you don't know how the multi-roll works, the way they announced it was that the multi-roll will give the character like a new sync move effect and some other things, right? But their kit will be based off of their EX roll. In Cynthia's case, she is more of a striker based character because her EX roll is strike. It's not that the EX roll is adding extra things onto her kit, it is more so that EX roll is what her kit is based around. So keep that in mind. That is why her defenses are kind of impressive, because she's a quote striker, quote unquote. With the Mega, of course, as well. 494 attack, 258 in both defenses, 433 speed. These stats are crazy. And then there's the EX roll. With the EX roll, she's got 538 attack. That's absurd. And the defenses stay the same, right? So her stats are good. She's got really, really good stats. Far better than what her base kit could actually have. I'm pretty sure, anyway. Like, if we want... pretty sure her regular stats are not anywhere near that good. Okay, 517 attack, that's actually not that big of a difference, but still, point being, higher offenses, really good offenses, yada yada, still really good sync pair. Very, very nice. So her stats are good. Stats are pretty crazy. We love to see that. I knew this is going to be a trend for all these Arc Suit sync pairs. Anyway, moving on to the moves, she's got Sand Tomb, which leaves the enemy trapped. This is, of course, not really a damaging option, but it is good for her kit once we go into the rest of it. She's got Sandstorm, of course, setting sand. Very good, because most ground types are based around sand damage. Less so recently. A lot of them have been, getting away from that aspect, like Fall Rock Sand and Costume Adamant, right? But still, a lot of them use it. And Cynthia, of course, does use it herself. And she's got her trainer move, Greatest Battle, which is 1 use, which applies gradual healing, super effective next, and increases her sync move next by 5 ranks. Sync Move Next is a new effect that will be directly powering up her next sync move, which of course on top of having multipliers and whatnot, super effective next, whatever else it may be, rebuffs, zones, all of that, it will be then of course having an extra buff on top of that from the Sync Moves Next, which can be stacked up to 10 stat ranks total, and that is of course going to be a very, very powerful sync nuke. So we really do like to see a lot of these buffs, especially if we do end up getting a character that is able to apply this to the team very well. Hint, hint, probably Steven. Whatever. And then, of course, she's got Almighty Rending Earthquake, which is a 2-gauge move, so very good gauge efficiency. 250 power minimum, hits all enemies, and it's activated whenever there is a sandstorm, and it can't be deactivated. So even if sand goes down, Cynthia still got this move activated, which is really good, obviously, because, maybe sand will go down, maybe it'll be a longer battle, whatever. The fact this move does not, is not reliant upon having sand up is really, really good. And then it lowers enemy defenses by 1, increases her Sync Move Next by 1 when its attack is hit against a trapped opponent. So she gets defense debuffs and she gets more power-ups for her Sync move when she hits trapped enemies. That's why she has Sand Tomb. You can trap all enemies, hit all enemies, and then you will get +3 Sync Moves Next because it's an AoE move, right? And that's going to be directly powering up her sync move on top of the +5 she gets from the trainer move. So she's already got a good way to buff her sync moves, very akin to that of like Champion Red or whoever the other, I don't remember who the other character was, but they rely upon, special moves next or physical moves next or whatever for an extra multiplier on their sync move. I'm pretty sure there was another one besides Red. But of course Champion Red was the biggest one, right? He got more special moves next and it powered up his sync move. It was not really a consistent thing to get because you of course couldn't stack it really. You would be using your DPS move and whatnot, so it's kind of hard to stack up to like +5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. But at the very least, I mean, Cynthia now having the innate sync move up next effect will obviously not be utilizing those on her regular moves, so she'll be able to actually stack them up and have a very powerful sync move. That's really, really nice. She's also got her passive skills here, which she does have 2 new, I forget what they call them, but they're new like arc suit based passives. I forget the exact title, like multi-passives, whatever they're called. Arc passives, something like that. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head. It's like a master passive, right? But for these arc suit sync pairs. She's got 2 of them. She's got Ground Myth, which is basically a master passive but for ground types, and it's not like the teamwork passives. It's actually more like Flag Bearer, where it gives allies up to a 30% power buff and 26% damage reduction the more ground allies you have on the team. This does of course mean that like type-based teams are going to become more and more popular, right, where you're going to be focusing on at least having 2 of each type on one team, as long as it's centered around a arc suit sync pair. So of course this does give you a direct buff to bring characters alongside her like Costume Datamine, Variety Giovanni, Lyra I guess is a support that she's going to be pretty invalidated, frankly. Obviously the old Cynthia could benefit a good bit, right? Like it's and Rika as a support as well. Fall Rocks and so many ground types, right, that you can run with Cynthia that are just going to be buffing her, buffing themselves. And that's obviously the big point of these grounded passives, is that it's bringing back type-based teams a lot of the time, which not like they were ever out of style to begin with, but it's now making them a big forefront again. Anyway, she's got Ground Judgment as well, her other like arc passive, which raises ally ground rebuff on entry and lowers enemy ground rebuff on entry as well. So again, it's just further powering up those type teams here, where you've got now ground rebuff for yourself, which of course that's mostly useful in like a damage challenge setting. I'm thinking about the Nita Ultimate Battle now. That's so funny. Whatever. Anyway, she does of course, she's able to mitigate all ground damage for the most part because of this, and of course increase all ground damage by lowering enemy ground rebuff, a further power buff to having other ground allies on your team, or at least characters who can use ground moves, like maybe Rose. So, very strong, for sure. She's got her passive skills, her regular passive skills, right? Not that they are any less crazy, obviously. Myth Archaeologist. It turns the field of play into ground zone when the user causes sandstorm, extends duration of sandstorm while on the field, and extends the duration of ground zone while the user is on the field. So she's basically got that Eriott passive where on top of setting sand, she now sets ground zone, and she's able to extend it probably by 50%, but it could be by 30% as well. So, this just gives her obviously the the lack of a necessity to run like a support like Rika, who's able to set ground zone, or Courtney for a ground zone set or something like that, right? This just makes it so she's fully self-sufficient in what zones and rebuffs and whatnot she wants, pretty much on her own. Though frankly, of course, with Sand having a limited MP, it might be in the best interest to bring a Sand character. Like maybe Ingo, but obviously a better support's, obviously better, but maybe Variety Giovanni wouldn't be a bad one either. That's just something to think about. Though Giovanni's got his own problems because she does have another passive that relies on Sandstorm. Anyway, and again, yeah, turns field of play, when the user causes, okay, so only when she causes a Sandstorm turns into ground zone, but still, she doesn't want Sandstorm anyway, so maybe having an ally set Sandstorm could be better for preserving some uses of ground zone. I'm just thinking about that. Anyway, she's also got Mutual Trust, which gives her guaranteed crits on all of her moves and protects her from damage in a Sandstorm. So, guaranteed crits, sand protection. These are basic things. Of course, they're going to give her guaranteed crits, so you don't have to worry about soften up 1, making her really good for the damage challenge or any game mode for consistency, whatever. So that's awesome. And then Unbending Pride, reducing sync countdown by 1 the first time the user's Pokemon uses a status move each battle, and raises her attack by 6 the first time its Pokemon uses a status move each battle. So this is why she doesn't really benefit that much off of like Variety Giovanni's Sand setting, because she still needs to use Sandstorm anyway to get her attack to +6. Of course, you can still run her with a support that can do that anyway as well, right? Like Arc Steven, just to throw that example out there, or Ingo, who can max attack as well. But of course, if you want to be self-sufficient, then you still have to use the Sand anyway, preferably early on in the battle where you can, so you can start doing damage. But hey, that's however you want to play. Pretty busted passives, I must say. She's got Sand, she's got Ground Zone on top of Sand, she's got Extension for both, she's got Enemy Ground rebuff, she's got Team Ground rebuff raising, and then of course she's got the effectively Master passive for ground types. Basically what you want to call it. And then again, unconditional crits, very good self-sufficiency, super effective next, sync move up next, this is of course her multiplier. All of this is really good. And then she's got her sync move, which is Cataclysmic Divine Earthquake. Divine moves are basically sync moves, but they're called divine moves, and they've got their own effects. This is where the multi-roll comes into play as being a different role in the game, because it gives a different sync effect. For the multi-roll sync effect, it lowers enemy rebuff for the following type by 1 rank the first time the sync move is used each battle, and it's ground. Right, it's going to be AoE if you do have her EX roll unlocked, so keep that in mind. She will be single target for her sync move until her EX roll is unlocked. Same thing as normal, which I do think, of course, she should get the EX roll unlocked. That's pretty big for her, at least probably. But obviously that's nice having that AoE ground rebuff, and on top of the ground rebuff on entry, this is a 50% multiplier, right? Very free. There's no real confirmation of it, but there is also a certain likelihood that, of course, because she is a mega sync pair, that her passive here will activate twice, where she lowers enemy ground rebuff again on entry for Mega Evolution, and of course raising ally ground rebuff as well. So I don't think we'll know that until it actually happens in game, because there are some passives like Head Start 1 which don't activate twice on Mega Evolution or whatever. Like in Wally's case it does, because he's got a different passive, but there's some other examples where entry passives don't work on Mega Evolution again, but there are obviously cases where it does, right? So that, but I feel like there's probably, I think it's probably not going to activate twice. It's probably just going to activate once, but either way, it's not that big of a deal anyway, because the damage difference between -2 ground rebuff and -3 is only 10%. So it's not that big of a deal, frankly, either way. So of course she'll be getting enemy ground rebuff on entry, and then she'll be getting enemy ground rebuff on her sync move. -2 ground rebuff for the whole enemy team with the EX roll unlocked. That's just further power buffs to her ground allies. They're already going to be benefiting from her Sand in some situations, and unanimously will be benefiting from her ground zone. Costume Adamant buff out the ass, as I like to call that. Love it. And then it's 300 minimum base power, so it does not have like a tech-based system. It's got the strike-based power, which is obviously, well, actually, I'm pretty sure strike is worse. Strike is like what, 250 with level 1 for, yeah, 250 with level with 1 out of 5. 300 minimum is what multi has. 360 maximum. It's like Palmer's sync move, where he's got a good power buff because he's a normal type, right? But I don't think it's nearly. I think Palmer's is only like. Actually, I think Palmer's is about the same, if anything. It's with the EX roll unlocked. yeah, Palmer's is the same, right? All multi-characters seem to have that same little power buff where it's about a 50 to 60 base power difference in their sync move, which is of course still really good. That's a good power. That's a good buff, straight out. And then, of course, they do have a sync move effect as well here, which will increase her physical moves next by 2 ranks. So this is another effect of the multi-X roll, where, of course, having multi-characters EX, you'll be getting the enemy rebuff, right? But for unconditionally, even if you don't have the character EX, you'll be getting this sync move effect here. It's like having a multiplier, where she's got increasing her own physical moves next by 2, which is, of course, going to be powering up her 250 base power Earthquake, and that is obviously stupidly strong on top of the ground zone and the -2 ground rebuff she's able to do to the enemy team with her 500 plus offensive stat. Yeah, pretty crazy striker. Now, is it crazy if you justify the 500, scout points or whatever, and is it crazy at 1 out of 5? That's really just up to you to decide, but for the most part, she's got great supportive ability for the team because of the ground rebuff in the ground zone and the sand as well, plus the extension, and her damage is crazy anyway. 250 base power AoE move, like even if it is AoE, that's still really good. And of course, she does have the defense debuffing, and she does have the sync move up next buffing, which of course, because she does not have a sync nuke multiplier, again, besides the fact she's already got ground zone and rebuff, she'll be of course having the sync move up next to directly power up her sync move, to compensate. And that's just at 1 out of 5. It's not like at 3 out of 5 she doesn't have multipliers either. Trust me, she's got multipliers. I guess that's time to look at the grid. But anyway, what would I say about 1 out of 5 Arc Suit Cynthia? I mean, she's good, for sure. She's really good. These characters are really fucking strong. Like, getting just 1 copy of this will make you blitz through a lot of the content. I'm not saying, like, ultimate battles. I mean, Lucy, definitely. But, like, friggin' hitting Nita through Sandstorm like that, I don't think we're going that far, right? But point being is that this is still a very strong character at 1 out of 5, and of course she's going to get nuclear levels of strength with extra copies. So anyway, the 1 out of 5 grid for Cynthia is not great. It's just Lith and some damage stuff, not really worth considering. 2 out of 5 she gets Sandtomb Discombobulate. Hit a trapped opponent's speed down, Soothing Sand, Sand Fortress, turn to move Mighty Command, Sands of Time, turn to move NPR. And then some like Gauge Refresh abilities, and also she gets a free +20 attack tile. All multi-sync pairs will have a free tile for increasing their move level. 2 out of 5 Cynthia just gets +20 attack, which, okay, I say just, but that's still good, obviously. No doubt about that. But point is, of course, they will be getting free tiles. Her 2 out of 5 is fine, but this is mostly Gauntlet utility, and with how premium these characters are, I'm not telling you how to like make your decisions and whatnot, but again, with how premium these characters are and how you can, you get their dupes, whether you summon more on that 500 scout points banner or if you invest general candies, you got to be pretty careful about what your move levels are. So if you're only going to invest a 2 out of 5, I mean, you do get some good stuff like accuracy debuffs, but most of the stuff I think is only really relevant in the Gauntlet. I don't think it's really relevant much elsewhere. So just, if you're going to invest in Cynthia, I would say all or nothing. I mean, 3 out of 5 is good too, but like, don't just stop midway at 2 out of 5 simply because like Mighty Command's not, it's nice, +1 physical moves next, but really that's going to be, it's going to be under like probably 0 sync buffs because you're already probably going to have to use like Earthquake on turn 3 right before your sync move. And then like Sands of Time for Gauge Refresh, Soothing Sand for a little bit of healing. These are mostly abilities that can be made up for by bringing other supportive characters, other better, really good support characters, or just or just dealing without, and it's not that big of a deal, right? So I wouldn't really consider most of these abilities to be that great outside of the Gauntlet, but in terms of ones that are, the healing's nice, the stat debuff immunity is very nice as well, the speed debuffs can be good, the accuracy debuffs are good for evasion, gauge acceleration, or quickly charging Gauge and Sand is nice too, though she is pretty gauge efficient anyway, so I don't think Gauge would be too much of an issue, but it is nice to have. The +20 attack tile is nice at least, so we do like that. Moving to 3 out of 5, Cynthia gets Sandstorm Brawn Gain 9, Attack Trap 4, Defense Crush 9, Sandstorm Propulsion 9, 3 sync nodes, basically 4 if you think about it. Team Sandstorm Immunity, Haymaker, Sandstorm moves up 5, and then Sandtomb AoE status change. That's what I'm calling it. Anyway, so Sandstorm Brawn Gain, of course, getting physical moves next on Sandstorm is nice, though I think the +1 physical moves next is mostly going to get diluted because you can just bring a support for that, get extra physical moves up next that way, and of course this is only +1 just for using Sand. I mean, that's only 2 uses of it, and you're probably going to be using 1 sand instance early on in the battle anyway, so it's going to be when you're a little bit weaker in strength because you don't have as many sync buffs, you don't have the debuffs from defense and whatnot, so you're only really going to be getting 1 big usage of this, and that's not really worth the 10 energy. A lot of other tiles are more worth it. She gets Attack Trap 4. This is pretty good because it gives you a raw 50% chance to just AoE trap the enemies, because the point of it is that you don't have to use Sand Tomb. You can now use Sandstorm, Earthquake, proc that 50% trap buff, trap all enemies, and now you don't have to worry about using Sand Tomb at all. You can just use your strong damaging option. I mean, that's fair, frankly. And again, the buff to having Trap activated on the enemy is that you get Sync Moves up next every time. Sorry, that's on her buddy move. You get Sync Move up next every time you hit a trapped opponent for up to +3 when you're hitting multiple enemies, right? So you're going to be gradually building up your sync damage just by attacking a trapped enemy. So the faster you can get trap on the enemies, the faster you can attack those trapped enemies means you'll be getting more and more Sync Move up next, which is just going to be making Cynthia even stronger. I do see, of course, the value in this node. This could be good, for sure, if you do want to just skip having to use Sand Tomb entirely and just go for the damage straight out. That's fair. She gets a +50 sync tile on top of 2 +25 sync tiles. Yeah, that's +100 on the sync power. 430 sync damage. Raw, that's fine. Plus, +10 sync moves up next, plus Haymaker, plus the 50% multiplier here. 250% sync nuke multipliers, and pretty much is what that is. On a 430 base power sync move, that's fine. Yeah, it's good, right? That's a really, really strong ability. I don't think anyone can really dispute that. It's going to be a very, very strong sync move, easily one of the best in the game, comparable probably to Champion Red, etc. She's got Defense Crush 9 as well. This makes her defense debuffing ability better. Of course, you can debuff with Sand Tomb now, though I think most people aren't really going to be thinking about that. It's mostly the fact you're going to be getting double debuffs on using her Earthquake. So you're going to be debuffing enemy defense by 2 instead of by 1, makes it faster, and that could be valuable if you are trying to end battles, really quickly. Though, if you're going to be ending battles quickly, I think her sheer damage output anyway is going to be doing that for you. Trust me. Anyway. She also gets Sandstorm Propulsion. This could be good for sync ramping, though frankly with the type of character that she is, I don't think sync ramping is at all what she really needs. She could make a use of it, of course, if you give her Head Start 1 or any other character Head Start 1. Just give her Weathered Warrior, by the way. Weathered Warrior is going to be just better for you. The damage output's going to be nuts. But of course, again, you can run like Head Start 1 or any other character here that might have a little bit of sync countdown you can work around with. Or of course like Paolo, who also is abusing sand and whatnot, so you could use some like double sprint tactics there. Though outside of sand, Cynthia and Paolo's synergy is not really there at all, especially because she's ground, he's rock. Pretty big difference there, especially with the extra reason to run ground allies via the Multiroll. So, or the whatever these passives, right? The Ground Myth passive. Anyway, I mean, the sync countdown's nice. It's nice to have. It could be useful, and it does also proc twice, of course, on the first use because of her passive here, giving -1 sync countdown when she uses a status move, or the first time she uses a status move. So -1 sync countdown for using Sandstorm early on could be helpful, again, combined with another use of sync countdown by whatever other character you can provide. She does have Team Sandstorm immunity, a little bit of utility to make sure your team does not die to her own sand. You could pick this up. It might not matter, frankly, if you have like gradual healing on like a support character like Rika, or in Rika's case also having Team Triage Tank. They don't tend to really care that much anyway about the chip damage from sand, but if it does bother you, and if it's not, it's imperative to your team's survival that you don't take Sandstorm chip damage. What teams are you building, man? Then of course you can pick it up, right? I mean, there is legitimate usage in it. And then, of course, it's right by Haymaker, so it's not like it's something you're probably going to be unable to pick up anyway, because it's right next to a 100% sync nuke multiplier. Again, she's able to max her attack anyway, so... she's able to max her attack, and so she's got a free 100% multiplier there, man. What else is there to say? And if you do pick up Sand Fortress, by whatever reason, then that makes it so Haymaker will always be activated by at its full amount because they can't debuff your attack. That's cool. Sandstorm moves and sync moves up 5, powering up both her moves and sync moves by 50% during a Sandstorm. I don't think her sync move level damage DPS option needed a big 50% multiplier, but it got it. It got it anyway. I'm mostly kidding. I do think, of course, this is very impactful for her damage, so obviously the 50% multiplier is amazing. Always go for this, please, unconditionally. And then again, it's a 50% multiplier on the sync move as well. Combined with Haymaker, the sync move up next, and the +100 sync tile damage. her nuke is going to be absurd. It's absolutely absurd on top of her absurd attack stat. Crazy, crazy damage potential. And then Sand Tomb hit team status, team apply status change 9. This makes it so your Sand Tomb will do AoE trap, basically. So if you want to use Sand Tomb once, you'll be getting AoE trap, and that does, of course, mean that you don't have to pick up attack trap here, though it is right by the sync node that you're going to be getting for free anyway, so there is no reason to run that. But also, this is right by the Sandstorm node, right? The Sandstorm damage up node, so you could pick up either one pretty much that you want. Anyway, that is Cynthia's Grit at 3 out of 5. She does, of course, get more stuff at 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5. 4 out of 5, she gets Physical Boost 2 on the Sync move. This is plus 4 physical moves next, pretty much, because she does, of course, already get it after using her Sync move anyway. So plus 4 physical moves next on her next Earthquake afterwards, on top of all of, the 50% DPS multiplier, the defense debuffs, the ground rebuff, the ground zone, the 500 plus attack stat. Good lord. Her Earthquake's going to be hitting like a truck, and I don't think I can stress that enough. And it's 287 base power, man. Like, good night. This character's nuts in damage, as is obviously the the goal, right? And this is a free tile, so if you do get her to 4 out of 5, it is free. You do not have to, like, sacrifice other grid nodes for this, like a lot of other 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 tiles, where you're like, okay, but I can get this really good tile, but I also have to sacrifice something. This is just straight free. This is free. You just get free damage. There's no downside to it whatsoever. And that's probably why it could be so appealing. And it is appealing. It's a very good tile. And then 5 out of 5, she gets Dust Kicker. This is absurd because it gives her infinite sand because she extends it, and it gives her infinite ground zone. As long as you use her sync move, which ideally you probably will anyway, simply because it's a great damaging sync move, and of course you're going to be probably focusing on her as your main damaging character. So if you're trying to do damage, or whatever, she's the only one that's really worth syncing with. I mean, of course, support EX first turn, that's fine, because she's got 2 uses of sand anyway. It's not like that sand's ever going to go down. It's not a big deal. But then after that, what are you going to use, a field character? She is a field character. She sets ground zone on the sand, so she basically already has a field sync move. What are you going to use, a sprint? Is the -3 sync countdown really worth more than your... For one, if you use them, let's go under the assumption you're running a sprint character anyway, because I see no sprint characters underground as it is. But let's say you do, and it's not your support character, which again goes back into using support EX first anyway. Let's say you use that sprint character. Okay, you get the -3 sync countdown anyway, and then you get to Cynthia sync move faster. She probably still has sand up from the 2 uses that she has of it, and then you get Dust Kicker anyway. This is nuts. Cynthia's basically the only character you really care about syncing with, other than support EX and the sprint EX, which is already negligible anyway. And it's crazy. It's just nuts. She's got to beat out Fall Roxanne in terms of, well, let's see. Innate Trap, Sync Power Flux, Slow Opponent Sync 5. No, she beats out Roxanne. She beats out Roxanne in terms of nuking damage, probably, for AoE ground nukes. That's nuts. And then again, she sets Infinite Sand and Ground Zone on top of it. That's why that node is so powerful, because this basically makes it so you don't want to ever have to run Rika, you don't want to ever have to run another, like Ingo, Variety Giovanni, or whoever character you want to run that can set sand for her whenever she's unable to use it by a sandstorm anymore. You will now obviously have infinite sand for her. That fixes that problem, and you can run a support like Arc Suit Steven, or like Argenta, Champion Rose, any character, Costume Liar if you want that 10% extra ground rebuff or something. Any character that can enhance Cynthia's damage even more than by providing, like, again, ground zone or sand or whatever, stuff that she can already do, is just going to be a better option to go for. So, the Dust Kicker is absurd. That's the 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 tiles are legitimately very good to go for. I'm not saying 5 out of 5 your Arc Suit Sync pair just because, that's a lot of investment, but if you if you want a very top tier sync pair, it's not as if, like, 3 out of 5 is the limit and then you're good. 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 are very impactful for her damage and overall consistency as a character, especially if we end up getting fights where they're a lot longer and you do end up really, really needing multiple uses of her sync move for that ground zone and sandstorm. So all of her tiles are legitimately good. Like 2 out of 5 is not great, but 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 5 out of 5 are amazing. And even again, just at 1 out of 5, Cynthia's kit is already quite busted. Like 250 base power AoE move that lowers enemy defense and buffs her own sync move damage. The -2 ground rebuff, the sand ground zone. the guaranteed crits, all of the stuff that just comes together to make Cynthia already look pretty damn strong at 1 out of 5. She just goes to brain dead, absurd levels of strength at 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 5 out of 5. It's nuts. So is Arc Suit Cynthia worth going for? Even if you're going for one copy, she's worth going for, man. She's just that good. And 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 5 out of 5, she is also stupidly strong. So with full investment, you're getting a character that at the very least rivals Champion Red in terms of strength, if not outright surpassing him. That being said, the fact that there is obviously the argument to be made that the fact that she only rivals Champion Red instead of being outright better than him makes her worse in some regard, or, less worth going for because of the bad banner format. I 100% understand that. If that's your sentiment, follow that all the way to, to your heart. But still, having her be as strong as she is, especially being a different type of character, being ground, being able to support ground characters with her rebuff and whatnot, I think is just a lot more appealing and valuable to go for as well, because it's not as if Champion Red is as good as he is because he's got a partner like Eriott to buff him, but Cynthia is as good as she is because she is a main damage dealer, but she's also got amazing supportive ability to make her other allies look stupid strong. Granted, Red's also got the same thing with rebuff, right? He does also have that, but also consider that Cynthia's got the ground zone, the infinite ground zone with the dust kicker and infinite sand on top of that too, and debuffs and whatever else that is just built into her kit at base, and you don't have to go out of your way and the grid like Red might in order to get that. Of course, again, Red's rebuff, he's got that for free, but he does not have Ice Zone, and he does not have special defense debuffs that I can immediately think of. I might be misremembering. I could be, but I don't think he does. So, but in that area, Cynthia does take the edge, and of course, Cynthia is directly powering up Ground Eyes even more with her passive, her master passive, whereas Red is, of course, dealing more with Kanto allies, which is not that big of a deal either, but still, point being, Cynthia is directly enhancing her ground allies a lot better than Red is directly enhancing his ice allies or even Kanto allies. So that's one thing to consider. At least that's how I feel. I could be wrong, of course. You can put down the math in the comments or make your own points, and that's 100% fair. But point is that Cynthia is still crazy. Absurd Sync Pair, one of the best characters in the game, no doubt. One of the best damage dealers, whatever. And she's crazy. So is she worth going for? Yes, 100%. And that point being, good luck on your summons. I will, of course, be going for Arc Suit Cynthia. I do want people to bear with me on, the showcase videos and whatnot, because I have very little time. I'm going to wake up early to record the summon video and try and get that out as early as possible, and then I will be putting out, hopefully, the 1 out of 5 showcase today, and I will try to put the 3 out of 5 showcase today as well, but I might not have time, voicing over the footage, when not at work and when I get home and whatnot. That's going to take a decent bit of time. And then the 5 out of 5 showcase I do plan to do, but I will do that at a far later date. I plan to do that more near the end of the anniversary, but that's just the schedule. I want to keep people updated, so you're like, where is the 1 out of 5 and 3 out of 5 showcases for Cynthia? Well, I spend 11 hours a day away from home where I can't really record. I can record footage, but I can't voice over it and I can't edit it. So if you want YouTube Shorts, we could do that, but I think people would just prefer wait a little bit and have a video up. So anyway, whatever. I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed. Good luck on your summons for Arc Suit Cynthia. Good luck on skipping and going for any other character you're going for this month. Or, of course, if you're skipping the whole month, that's entirely fair, too. Good luck, and hope things go better. So, yeah. I'll see you later. Hope you all enjoyed. Peace.